We've got these two ladies now who are going to share some of their knowledge. Now, we've had a great lineup, I've got to say, the last 3 day, girls, from Building Design Queensland. BDQ, you're very lucky to have this here. So I do Melbourne, Sydney home shows as well. We do not have a collaborative speaking like you do at those stands. So I know that we expect this up here in Brisbane, and you're lucky to have it. Each of the speakers are different. I'm going to hear if they agree or disagree, because we've got two different voices here, even though they both create the same beautiful product at the end. We've got Polina Radchenko. Polina Radchenko Interiors, fantastic name. Interior designer based in Red Hill, if I'm correct, dealing with small to large residential and commercial property. And on my left is Nathalie Knight. The Outside Perspective is her business name. In 17 Mile Rocks, is that where you live?
Yeah.
17 Mile Rocks, an amazing name for a suburb. She's a building designer. So we've got a building designer and an interior designer. We're going to hear them speak now about working with your design team, understanding the difference and how you can be armed with knowledge to help you with your own renovate or rebuild journey. We'll do Q&A straight afterwards. Please put your hand together for the ladies on my left. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for coming to our presentation. I hope you get a lot out of it. Could I just get of people that are around, a show of hands, who has renovated before? Excellent. Who has used a professional, like an interior designer, building designer, architect, to help them through the process? Wonderful, wonderful.
Excellent. And who here is in the process of building or renovating currently? Excellent. And who's thinking about renovating or building a home? Excellent. So hopefully we can answer some of the questions that you might be having about the process. Now is the perfect time for you guys to be doing this, because we can arm you with all the right knowledge to go into that process, you know, straight on, and have all the information that you need and avoid some of the costly mistakes that we can see our clients frequently do, and save you guys some money, save you the trouble, and make sure the process is super enjoyable for you, that it's great, that you love it, and that it's a really great investment. You know, a home is one of the biggest investments in our lives in general. We put in a lot of money into building one, or purchasing the right home, looking after it, making sure it's great. So you do really want to make that process great, and you want to make that a great investment.
Yeah. The time and effort that you put in at the start really kind of starts to come home at the end, when the project is sort of coming to an end, and you just sort of get those little butterfly feelings that, oh, this is exactly how you imagined it to be, and I think that's really a feeling of knowing when you've done a good job and you've done everything that you possibly can. You've been through all the many options of designs, you've been through the options of different finishes, and you know exactly this is exactly you and your family, and you can see yourself living in it into the future. So,
and it's such an amazing feeling. That's what we all want, isn't it?
Okay, so just a bit of a info about the BDQ. So Building Design Queensland, we're an association that is Queensland based, and we advocate for building designers and anybody as well in the building design industry. So we've recently brought on interior designers as well, and more than welcome to sort of come and join the association, where we can advocate for the use of professional, knowledgeable people for the homeowners and consumers out there. So if you are sort of looking at using a professional, always look at things like their credentials, if they're a member of different associations. That's always a really good place to start. So.
Excellent. So hopefully, whether you are DIYing this and you know, in the process, or you're looking to do it yourselves, so this will be a great opportunity for you to see what's involved and what are some of the things that you might not realize right now that are going to be important to think about ahead of time, or whether you, sometimes we see clients get really far ahead in the process and realizing that, look, my ideas don't really come together as well as I'd hoped, or, you know, the process is actually quite stressful and overwhelming. And that's when they sort of think that they might need some help with that. But unfortunately, sometimes it's just a little bit late. So you guys are in a great position now to do this early so that you can avoid some of those things.
Excellent. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so your design team. So depending on the size of the project that you're embarking on, whether it's a small kitchen or bathroom reno, or it's a big new home or a full renovation of an existing home, it's really important to get the right team around you, and depending on that size of project will depend on how many people you'll need to sort of bring along with you. So always, I believe it's always important to start with your building designer or your architect, depending on who you choose to work with. And then from there, they will guide you through to the other consultants that you'll need, interior designers included in that. So it's, I'll talk to sort of a bigger renovation. The list can be quite big of people that you need to bring in. So you have to make allowances, not only for money, but for time as well. If it's a large renovation, there'll be surveyors, your building designer or architect, depending on council regulations and overlays. There could be town planning permits involved, and that can take a big chunk of time. So if you're sort of halfway through the process and you've fallen in love with the design, you're starting to talk to a builder, you send it to your certifier and he goes, oh, you need a town planning approval. Oh dear, that is really going to set you back in time and a good chunk of money as well. So it's really important to do all your checks at the beginning, and that's where working with a professional designer will be able to help you through that process.
That's really important, and I personally am a firm believer that if you go to a building designer or an architect first, then you're considering your needs from a point of view of, what is actually required, what are the spaces that you're needing from a new build perspective, and in terms of the renovation, how can you put it together in the best way possible, considering the needs of me and my family. And you sort of starting from that perspective, and then you can sort of figure out your design, and then we can assist you with pricing it and making sure that you're on budget. But starting with, your design is often a great thing to do, because you do want to get it right. You don't want to be guided necessarily by how quickly can we get this done and how cheaply can we get this done, because as I said, it's one of the biggest investments in your life.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're doing it right and that it really suits your family. So this is what we're going to cover today. As I said, whether you're DIYing this or you want to consider engaging a team, we are going to talk about the benefits of working with your design team, so working with both the building designer and an interior designer, and what the process might look like. So in terms of what the scope will be and how we can sort of work it together, when to engage us, the value, so why it's a great value add to your project, having both of us on your team, and how to engage us as well, what to look out for, who's the best professional for you, and how you can make that choice and that decision, because it's going to be one of the biggest decisions likely that you're going to make during this entire process. Kind of talked about that one. Okay, so the benefits. The biggest thing I think is the old time and true saying, you don't know what you don't know. So you're embarking on a renovation and you're sort of thinking about designs and layouts and everything like that, but there's always going to be something in there that will sort of trip you up. And if you had known beforehand, and in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. You can sort of eliminate those kind of things if you do sort of engage with a building designer as early as possible. So, yeah. Absolutely. And I guess a lot of people we find don't know what interior designers do. So I think a lot of the time the assumption is that it's cushions and window coverings. So let's just clear this up right now. So there is interior design, there's interior decoration, and there's interior styling. So they are different trades. And often there will be crossover, But if you are looking to engage someone who can assist you, not just with your selections, finishes and fixtures and lighting and those sorts of things, but actually help make sure the internal flow of your home or your project that you're working on works really well, that the functionality of spaces is considered, that we can create the drawings as well that you can give to the builder so that they know exactly what they're building for you. So you have more control over what your kitchen will actually look like, what your bathroom will look like, and make sure that the finer detail is beautiful across the whole space. Interior decorators generally are more concerned with the ambience of a space, so it's usually referred to more non-sort of built-in fixtures and things like that. So furniture, window coverings, accessories, artworks, that would be an interior decorator. So if you need someone to furnish your home, you're sort of looking at working with an interior decorator. Often an interior designer can also do interior decoration. Sometimes interior decorators can't do interior design, so it's very important that you ask the right questions up front. And when we're talking interior styling, often that refers to property styling, so styling houses for sale. So sometimes styling can also be an interior decoration. So it's very important you understand, I know it can be confusing, but it's very important that you understand what the differences are when you're thinking of engaging the right professional.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's where sort of coming to your designer with a really good brief will help that, so that everybody's on the same page of sort of what you're looking for out of your project, and then they should be able to say, well, yeah, that's what I can do for you, or no, you need to go and find somebody else with that skill set. So it's really important to sort of have in your mind what it is that you're exactly after.
And so, as I mentioned before, we often find clients get to, construction process and then are feeling really overwhelmed. So an interior designer can help you make sure that all of your ideas are well considered. So we'll look through the inspiration that you give us and some of the things that you love, and we see some similarities and start seeing some patterns. We'll see where you're heading with that, and also make sure that you are not going to invest money in something that is not going to give you the best value, and it's not actually going to come together nicely. So that's a big benefit, I suppose, in using us on your project. And like I mentioned as well, it's having all the right documentation in place. So building designer will do that from the drawings point of view, making sure your architecture is beautiful, that it's well put together, that the facade looks great. But then interior designer can help you make sure that your cabinetry, your kitchens and bathrooms, they look beautiful as well, and they're just as considered.
Yeah. And it also goes down to, like, once you start engaging with a builder, and we always sort of advocate for early engagement with a builder, so you can get sort of feedback on pricing and everything as soon as you can. But it also, if working with both an interior designer and a building designer, you get a set of documents which is all-encompassing. Everything that you have chosen is there. And so if you do go to a builder, or maybe you might be going out to tender or something like that, you're giving the same set of documents to each builder, so that they are providing you with a price that is going to be the same. So when you're comparing those 3 different quotes from builders, you're comparing apples with apples, or as close as you will. So where if you don't get sort of interior design done, or your design drawings are a bit ambiguous, and that the builder kind of starts to put in assumptions of things. So what one builder's assumption will not be the same as the other builders. So if you, as a homeowner, are trying to go through quotes from builders, and what a nightmare trying to put it all together, and that process can be extremely stressful. The builder is going to get probably a bit annoyed with you back and forth and that, but if they have a really great set of documents to start off with, the process will be so much smoother.
It is extremely important, as Nathalie said, to make sure that you are actually providing your builder with all the right documentation that they're quoting, because it's a really good point. It's never going to be the same quote from 2 different builders, and you might wonder why. And I feel sometimes clients come to us and they say, oh, we're a bit worried about engaging an interior designer. It's going to be so expensive. It's going to blow out the budget. I would encourage you to look at it differently. I'd encourage you to look at it from a value add perspective, because upfront costs are not necessarily a bad thing, because it really saves you that headache at the end. And with the amount of variations that we see that come through during the build process, when things aren't selected, they're not well documented, the mistakes happen on site, there's lack of coordination.
Yeah.
That probably is actually costing you much more money than you would have spent.
Yeah.
It's definitely costing you much more money than what you have spent.
Absolutely.
Working with a designer and a building designer and an interior designer.
And I think as you go through the process as well, it's a long process. So by the time you're sort of on site, the builder's asking you question after question after question, there's a legitimate feeling of decision fatigue when it comes to renovating, where you're just like, I don't care anymore. I just want to get in my house. And this is when things start to fall apart. Whereas if you've got a really great team behind you who know your values, who know what you're looking for at the end, they can answer those little questions for you. All those 5mm decisions, I call them, where, you know, what do we do with the finish of this tile? How do we finish off this? How do you want that to look? And that, talk to an interior designer, talk to the building designer. They will do it for you. They've got it all covered. Just leave me alone. So that's where sort of the benefit comes in. So everybody's on the same page.
It is 100% true. The amount of time that we see people just getting completely overwhelmed and they stop enjoying the process of building their home and renovating, the process that should be really enjoyable and exciting. You're looking forward to, you know, building your home together and, you know, making new memories in the new space. So we help make that process as fun and enjoyable as possible and just save you that headache. Because yes, it's just so important to have that right. And especially if you are someone who's, you know, busy working, you know, you've never had a renovation or build process experience before, you've never gone through that process, you just don't know what you don't know. And so when you find out what you don't know, sometimes it's a bit late, you know, to get it done right. So, you know, investigate, you know, do some of the prep work, do some of the investigation work. Don't be afraid to ask the questions that you might, you know, not have the knowledge of. It is completely fine. It's better to know those things ahead of time than to then make mistakes and kind of feel a little bit like it was a missed opportunity, feel a bit sad. And you will notice it because you will be walking through your home, you'll be interacting with everything, you'll be touching and feeling the finishes around your home, and any stuff-ups, you will be looking at them every day. So if you've picked a tile that you're really not happy with, oh man, every time you go to the shower and you're like, you know, thinking about this lovely things, that tile, I don't like it. So yeah, we can help you kind of avoid those mistakes and help do that right so that you are in the shower only having the happy thoughts.
All right, so the process. So this is, you know, generally speaking, each designer that you work with may do it a different way, but generally speaking, this will be the way that it kind of runs. So you will select your designer, you'll sit down and you'll do a brief. Now, they may have a document for you to fill out. They may just ask you to write something down. A good designer should have something, a bit of a performer for you to fill out and for you to think about. I do it with all of my clients. I give them a form. It goes through, you know, everything. How many, for the high level stuff, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, all of that kind of stuff too. Right down to, how do you guys cook? Are you a bulk buyer? So you need to store a lot of things. All these little things come into the design early on so that we can allow for, we need a bigger pantry to store all of these ingredients and that you go out once a month and sort of hoard for the month and then cook through the month. You know, little things like your interaction with the outside as well. Are you, you know, do you have young kids? Is connection to the garden really important to you and being able to see kids? Are you a professional couple that likes to entertain a lot? All of those kind of things gets considered. So right from the start, it's so important for you guys to sit down as a family and go through what is important to us and start to kind of think about how you guys live your life now. Is it working? Is something not working? Is something that you do every single day really annoying you, and that sort of spurred on this need for renovation? Write it all down so that we know. Because we can solve these sort of problems through design and space and the flow of movement and everything. So it's really important to get a really great design brief to your designer.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. In terms of the discovery process, it's really important. The biggest decisions are generally at the start of your project. The further you go into the process, the smaller the decisions become. So if you consider the brief up front, if you really sit down as a family, spend the time to think about, from the interior design point of view, what are all the functionality of the spaces? In the kitchen, do I want to have an oven stack? Do I want to have, one oven? Do I want to have a wide oven, a small oven, because all of those sorts of things then flow back into the architecture. Because, for example, if you've got a lovely splashback window in your kitchen and you didn't allow for an oven tower, then we're going to have to go and put the oven tower back in, and then we're going to have to go back to the designer and ask them to make the windows smaller. So it's those sorts of things. Interior designer can generally help you visualize the space as well, so that you can really think about that functionality. But the better the brief that you give your design team up front, or if you're doing it yourselves, the same thing. If you really consider what is it that you need out of your space and how, we can help you with the how. So this is where we have seen more than what you have seen likely. And we have a bigger frame of reference. So we've seen how your particular issue can be resolved in 100 different ways, probably. So we can help you with a creative way of solving your problems, essentially, and making sure that you're actually getting everything that you want out of your space, all kind of packaged up in the one space. So that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So then from that brief, we will take that, and we'll often, if it's a large renovation, we will get surveyors in and we'll come and measure your home top to bottom, and we'll take photographs of everything. If it's a smaller project where it might be a kitchen or a bathroom, the interior designer will come and measure the spaces, take photos of everything, and then draw up what you have now, and then we'll work on a concept for what you could have, in the future. So that's the concept design is a starting point. So if you ever work with a designer and they give you a concept design and you're like, oh my gosh, what have they done? This is nothing like what I thought, or, I suppose go in it with an open mind and thinking, okay, this concept is a starting point, and it's often like sort of food for thought, really. Like, oh, okay, this maybe isn't how I thought it would be, but let me consider it for, more than 2 minutes and sort of think about myself living in the space and enjoying the space. Oh, actually, yeah, that could work, or I'm not really sure about this area here, and then you go back to the designer, and then the conversation about the design continues on. And that's where communication between all parties is really important. And, I suppose a designer shouldn't get too precious about their design work and what they've given to you, because at the end of the day, this is your house. This is what you guys want. So, don't be afraid to say, no, look, you've really missed the brief, or no, you've nailed this part, but can we re-look at this area here? So it's just about continuing the conversation, and don't worry about sort of hurting feelings and everything, because at the end of the day, when you move in and you're like, oh God, I really should have said something right at the start. This was never gonna work for me, but I was too embarrassed to say something. You really want to avoid those moments.
That's, again, couldn't agree more with that. In terms of, we often get asked, when is the time to engage an interior designer? And just like people sometimes get confused about what interior designers do, they also sometimes engage us a bit too late in the process, or they look to engage us late. So a qualified interior designer will help look at the internal flow of spaces, and like I mentioned, make sure that the functionality is well considered. So if there's any issues with the appliances that you are hoping to select, or you actually want a freestanding bath and not a built-in bath, and actually you don't want the sink in the island bench and you actually want it in the back bench. So these are actually all the things that are important to consider, not just from interior design point of view, but from the building designer point of view as well. And we're likely going to have to go back and revise your drawings if that's not reflected. So we can help you make sure that the finer detail is there. So we normally get engaged around the design development stage, so early design development.
Yeah, so that comes after the concept design stage. So this is where we're sort of making these changes, and they'll start as big changes and then they'll filter down to smaller changes. So that's where having an interior designer on board, and then you start thinking about those sort of finer things of where the bath is going to sit. Oh, okay, if we want the vanity to sit there, where's the window going to go? We can't have the window right above the vanity. So everything kind of like overflows into each other. And I think when you've got a team that works really well together, all of these things can be resolved with minimal fuss, and it doesn't become a burden to go, oh, we have to go back to the designer now to change that window, and oh, that's going to cost me more to do that. And that, but if everyone's working together, everyone's talking and communicating, these kind of little changes will just sort of get scooped up and changed as the process goes along. So, yeah.
So yeah, design development, there's a lot sort of happens there, a lot of wheels in motion, and having a team that works great together, it is a really, really good idea. And asking for recommendations, we'll touch on that later, but
yep.
Asking your building designer for recommendations to your interior designers, and builders and things like that. That just will help you make sure that the team's actually working really well together. They can call each other, ask questions, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, so then next it basically comes engagement with the builder and your pricing and everything, which we touched on previously. So once we get the price right and everything, you're on site now and everything's happening and it's exciting and that. But then as the interiors start getting put in and plumbing gets roughed in and electrical roughed in, this is where it really comes home that, we do need to get all these decisions. But hey, I've already done it. Ask the interior designer, or I'll have a look at these drawings, refer to this, look at that. That's a much better position to be in, where you can just say to your builder, no, we've sorted it all out. It's on this drawing, have a look at it. And he'll be like, great, we'll move on. And everything will sort of run beautifully smoothly. That is the aim anyway.
Absolutely. And you, as we mentioned before, you just don't know what you don't know. So it really does come together once things are on site, but often because the building needs to be built in a certain way and there's certain order of things, like Nathalie said, electrical rough-ins and things like that, that happens before any of the joinery is actually in, and you can actually visualize where your rooms are going to be. It's that stage is really early. So for you as a homeowner, it's really hard to make those decisions then, because you can barely sort of visualize it at that stage because it's all sort of just framing. So when you have an interior designer helping you with your documentation, so Nathalie, building design and architect, someone like Nathalie will help you with, your making sure that your structure is drawn up and, your facade and your building is together and your plans are looking great and clean. In terms of the finer detail of, the kitchens and bathrooms and things like that, that's where we can help you visualize them. So we can sort of essentially guide you space by space and show you what it will look like so that you can better make decisions around, do I want a stack of ovens, or do I want one oven, or do I want, my island to be beautiful and sculptural, or do I want to maximize the storage space, or, oh, it's actually looking quite tight here, and I wouldn't mind sort of changing the proportions a bit to open this space up a little bit. So we can really help you make sure that detail is right, because you will, as I said, be living in the space and looking at it every day and really enjoying the space. So we can help you get that right. So we can create the cabinetry drawings as well as your bathroom details in a nice little package. Your ceiling plans, your electrical plans, so that you don't have to think about it, and all the switches are going to be in the right place, and everything like that. So you don't have to stress when things are on site and your builder is asking you all these questions and you just want to get it done.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next thing, how can we add value to your project? Obviously, we are an upfront cost, so we don't get brought into your sort of mortgage or however you're sort of financing your project. So this is an upfront cost that you need to pay for. But the value comes sort of later on. Well, it comes through the process, but sort of also once you're on site with your builder and just having the confidence to know that you've made all the right decisions and you've made the right choices and everything is as per, your dreams. So that's where sort of a value lies with us.
Absolutely, and like I mentioned, don't be afraid of the upfront cost, because it's a percentage of a much larger number that you're actually investing in your home. It saves you so much time and hassle. But if you do want to do it yourself, I guess it's just being realistic with the experience that you've had with building and renovation works, the amount of time you have on your hands to put towards all of the selections, because it is quite a bit of work that often people don't realize about. So all of those things that you can kind of consider and make a decision based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that when I'm talking to my clients and they're sort of wondering whether to use an interior designer or not, or do it sort of themselves, and I always sort of say, okay, well, what do you guys do on a weekend? Because from, for the next sort of 3 or 4 months, you're going to be paving. You're going to be marching the pavement, going to tile shops and bathroom shops. And have you ever walked into a tile shop lately? There are so many options. Like, oh my goodness, even I get sort of overwhelmed with things. So, being able to say to your interior designer, look, here's my Pinterest board. I love Pinterest. Collate everything on there. Hand the interior designer your username. They can jump in there and have a look, and they'll start to get a look and feel for your project, and then they will come to you with a few options of floor tiles, wall tiles, without you having to lift a finger. And I think for myself and my clients, that's the biggest benefit, because there's so many tile shops, there's so many tiles within that tile shop, there's so many finishes within that tile. There's trims, there's everything, all these things that you hadn't even imagined when you started pinning things on Pinterest of sort of, oh, why is it that I really like that photograph? Let me tell you, it's those little 5mm, details that make you fall in love with these photographs of, beautiful houses, beautiful bathrooms and kitchens and everything. They don't just happen, a lot of thought and detail have been put into them, and that's where using an interior designer will get you there.
I think another concern people have, which I'm going to address, is around pricing again. So if I engage an interior designer, does that mean that all of a sudden my build process, my build costs are going to go right up? Are they going to select the most expensive tiles? Am I going to be, able to not afford my build anymore? So I have to say that we know product really well. We go to trade shows, we get suppliers come in and do product updates with us. We know the product and we know the pricing. So the beauty is that we can actually add the value that way. So instead of you spending $300 on a marble tile because you think that, oh, that's going to just make the whole design amazing and I won't have to do anything. No, we can spend $100 on that beautiful feature tile. We can use it sparingly and we can complement it with a more general tile, and we can create, beautiful joinery, and the application of that material will be well considered. So it's actually, that is the expertise that we add to your project. We are strategic about where the money is going, what is important to you. So if the kitchen is important to you, we might select higher-end appliances or appliances that are really functional, really going to be important because you'll be cooking all the time. If you have a messy house and families and kids and dogs, we'll make sure that the finishes that we're selecting are actually very durable. So they're beautiful and aesthetically pleasing, but they're also durable. So it's going to be a great house to live with, and just enjoy it, a house that's really lived in. Yeah. So those sorts of things that we really add value. And so if you sort of make sometimes those decisions without knowing the product, having that product knowledge or the right application of those materials, you can end up with having to if you put marble into the kitchen, having to clean it, and be really sort of OCD about, nothing getting spilled and, shushing your kids and, trying to, play around with, food and ingredients. So it's those sorts of things that we can just ensure that it's a worthy investment and the house is actually really appropriate for the family. The other thing I'm going to mention as well briefly is that something that clients often don't know about is that interior designers often actually have great relationships with their suppliers. So especially when it comes to furniture selections and those sorts of things, we often can leverage off of those relationships and actually can provide a great service to the client save them a lot of money during that process. Make sure that they have beautiful furniture. House comes together really nicely, and it actually doesn't cost them as much as they would if they just walked into that shop themselves. So it's really worthy just having a conversation, and it's a fine question to ask. You don't have to worry about asking that question because we understand that everyone has a budget. Interior design is not just for the famous people and rich and famous. It's accessible these days to everybody, really. Yeah. So it's just about asking those questions.
And it's also communicating your budget to your design team as well is really important. So everybody will have a budget, even if you're sort of not 100% sure of it, it'll be there, and it's just worth sort of teasing that out of people. So it's really important to be honest with your design team right from the start, because we can't make these little decisions of, okay, we won't use that $300 tile, we'll use a $100 tile, but we won't know that unless you guys tell us what the budget is. So it's really important to be honest right from the start. Okay, so how to engage with us or how to select a designer that you want to work with. I think a good space to start, the PDQ do have a Find a Designer page on their website. So if you're looking for a building designer, jump on their website. They're all, the BDQ has a CPD program so that you know that all the designers that are on there have a continual professional development program. It's not mandatory in our industry, which is crazy, but hopefully that's going to change soon. So the BDQ have jumped on the front foot and have set up this a CPD program so that all of the professionals are up to date with everything, and you know that the advice that they're giving you is up to date, and particularly now with the new NCC 2022 changes, which are massive.
Construction code changes.
Yeah. So big things like waterproofing. If you're here doing your bathroom, the waterproofing changes that have come in are massive. So make sure you're working with a designer who is across all of that. So it's a really good place to start. Otherwise, social media is a really, really awesome leverage. At the moment, a lot of really great designers are putting really great content out there. You'll know which one resonates with you, and start following them. Get an idea of the way they work, their style. If that resonates with you, then contact them, have a chat, and that. But if it doesn't, then you can move on, and sort of nobody's wasted any time. So it's a really good way to sort of get a bit of an insight into their little world.
I think another actually good avenue is looking at awards. So obviously interior designers and building designers and architects that enter awards have made a commitment to ensure that the design aesthetic and the functionality of the spaces are great, and it's peer reviewed by others as being such. So highly recommend. Nathalie and I are both award-winning firms. So we think that awards are a great sort of way to showcase, I suppose, our work and also make sure that there is that, peer review process and, make sure that what we are creating is, good, not just, from our point of view, but is rated by other designers, other architects, other interior designers. So highly encourage you to do that. And as I mentioned, ask for recommendations. Do really ask, because it's such a big decision that you're making. who to engage, designer or architect, builder to engage. Those are really big decisions, and I advise you to not sort of make them rushed.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to people who've done it before. Have they had a good experience, a bad experience? Have they, what about it was really good? You can start to sort of, pick up on little things. Remember, just make sure to ask the designer that or ask the builder that. See how they answer. That can be a sort of key thing in your decision making. So word of mouth is really important in this.
All right. Well, we really encourage you to have a chat to us afterwards as well if you have any questions, but we've got actually some more questions that you
That
can
was
ask.
great. I hope you girls... Oh, am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Let's see. Might be my batteries. Can you hear me now? Great presentation, girls. I would gladly work with either of you. Really interesting to see that passing of the ball process almost from the building design to interior design.
Yep.
I work with this, young lady. I'm on this side. But we, of course, need to understand. Polina, you talked about that, that process, that difference. I think people are confused. I have friends who are decorators and they're called interior designers. Now, they perhaps have fabric knowledge that I don't have. But they don't know what a rectified tile is. They don't know heights of bench tops. They don't understand that stuff, which we do every day. It's really clear to understand the difference.
Yeah, I think with the changes that are coming in, things are getting a lot stricter. So, the selection of all your materials and everything can have an impact on your final certification in the end. So if your designer isn't across all of these things, oh God.
Yeah, it's a big issue.
Yes.
You alluded to the new construction changes that are coming through 1st of October. It's affecting waterproofing, it's affecting windows, it's affecting many things in the home. I have to get my head around it. Like, we have to be on this. It's overwhelming.
It is really overwhelming, yeah.
And how are you going about that already now? Are you starting to bring that information through to clients?
Yeah, so we're probably for the last 12 months we've been sort of hearing about this coming in. There's certain associations who are pushing back on it, but I think at the end this is going to be really great changes and creating more livable homes for everybody in society. So I think it's really important to get on board. As a designer, we've been, looking at these changes and getting our heads around them because they're complex changes and they're changes which affect the way that we document a building. The amount of documentation that we need to give is going to be a lot more. You need to make selections, sooner, where the energy efficiency changes and that the whole of homes, the certifier will want to know what air conditioner you're putting in, what hot water system you're putting in, because it is all relevant to the usability of your home and how much energy it uses. So it's really important to make sure that you're working with the designer who is across it all.
She's so good.
She's so good. We also, we deal with the clients. For me at the moment, I know the last 18 months, 2 years, budgets have gone crazy, building materials have gone through the roof. How important is it to be able to have the trust of an interior designer so you can trust and understand why things have gone up in price and how can I save on budget and spend more here and less there to achieve a great result?
Absolutely, it's so important. We have found in the last couple of years, more so than ever, having your specifications done up early, so having everything selected and decided on, so that when your build contract is signed and the project is going on site, everything can actually be ordered ahead of time, so before it actually really even is needed, because then you save yourself the headache of having to reselect, having to sacrifice what you really want for what's available. And our product knowledge comes in really comes in here, because we know our suppliers really well. We know what's in stock. We know what the lead times are. We know where the client, and we design accordingly as well. And we might design something. We generally don't design something around a specific material. It's more about the concept. It's more about what is important. The texture, the light and the dark, and the proportion, the beautiful joinery, those sorts of things. So if we do need to swap out one material for another, it's generally not a big drama. And something that I probably haven't mentioned as well is often the design gets costed and everything that we ideally want gets priced up. But then, and it might be a little bit more than the client sort of was hoping for. And some clients freak out. Yeah, being generous here, yes, usually it's more than what the client was hoping to spend. It is quite common, but it is not a reason to freak out because it isn't the end, that's it, I can't afford my design, I have to put it on the back burner. No, we just go through the value management process. We understand what is important from the value point of view, what's important for you in your home, in your design, and then what we can compromise on. Maybe, in the rumpus room, we don't have the cabinetry yet. Maybe we come back and we do it in a year or 2 years' time. And so all of a sudden we saved, $4,000, those sorts of things. So yeah, there's no reason to freak out. Working with the team is really helpful because then, you've got that peace of mind that, we can help you refine that.
You actually already alluded to it without even realising anyway with the marble tile example. Instead of putting it everywhere, use it in a small amount to still get big wow.
Yeah.
We've got two ladies who are very profound in their expertise. You can see them smile and laugh away to each other, but they are dealing with really serious jobs, serious roles, because these are our homes. They have to meet certification and be functional for us to live in. We love having your knowledge here on the stage. It's been honestly a very strong presentation, so I've been listening the whole time as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
These ladies' details, amongst others, are already listed and you can find them at Building Design Queensland. You have such a great portal up here. I'm not part of it, I'm New South Wales, so I'm screening something that I think you are so fortunate to have. The BDQ website, but also you can find these ladies individually and talking to them, work with them collectively. We've got Polina Radchenko Interiors.
Love it, so good.
And Nathalie Knight, the outside perspective. Both living up here in beautiful areas. I know people are reticent to ask some questions, so I will ask you to go to the side, get their details and form these relationships early. You might not be ready yet. But even I see clients sometimes 12 months before we even start doing anything. It's so important now more than ever. Please put your hands together for these two ladies on my left. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
We've
you.
got some brochures there as well if you want to grab one, and please have a chat with us afterwards. Thank you so much for being here and listening to us today.